Ladies and gentlemen, it is Truth Will Set You Free, episode number 59. This is what I like to call Youth in Revolt. We have been talking about this one for a while. I wanted to get some young people, and hopefully this is the beginning of many, many more episodes, especially where we can have the opportunity to see what young people, not just conservatives, this is an episode of conservatives, but we would love to have our youth, young adults, actually have a discussion with each other in a format like this where it's a safe space where people can actually engage. But this episode, we're going to see what it's like to be a young conservative in today's world and with the different news and with the different stories and with the different narratives going on. So please join us, hit the like button, hit the heart button, and we'll get the show started shortly. While we are getting ready, please, again, this is a great episode to hit the share button. Probably not going to be the super drag out, drop down fights that sometimes we have when we have some of our debates. But this one's going to be a great episode where you guys can learn something that you might not always get to see, which is young people talking about what it's like to be a conservative in America in 2021. And it is a different world than it used to be because opinions, well, everybody has them, just like a-holes. You know what I mean? All right, guys, we're going to get the show started in 30 seconds. Go ahead and hit that like button, hit the hearts. We've got a lot of people watching and not enough thumbs up, hearts, and care buttons. If you are on YouTube, go ahead and swipe the comments off to the side so you can hit those reaction buttons. That helps trick the algorithm. Truth Will Set You Free, episode 59 starts in 30 seconds. That's all right, guys. It is time for episode number 59. We've got my boy Casey with me. I think Suni right now is in the middle of a typhoon. She's able to post on Instagram, but I don't think she's going to make the show today. We could be surprised, but we don't know. Casey, how you doing today?
Oh, fantastic. Just making sure we're all praying for Suni and make sure everything's good, but great day.
Great day. I got a lot of stuff done today. I had a lot of progress, a lot of work on the Awake Not Woke trademark. All good things. The search came out good, so mostly positive stuff. If anybody is trying to message Cash right now, the app is down, so you actually have to go on your computer and do it if you actually want to reach out to him. I sent him a message a couple days ago. I know Erica is using her computer, but that's the reason. If you're having trouble, the app is just not working the way that it is, the way that it should be. So,
anyone surprised? Not really.
Not really. Also, if anybody gets a chance, I watched. Casey, did you watch the American Snippets Barb Allen interview with Brad Lee?
I haven't got to that one yet, but that is on my list for tomorrow.
It is a winner. I always like the Grant Cardones, the Brad Lees, to actually hear where they stand politically, and they usually don't talk about it. Brad Lee talks about it, and he is very much on a side that I agree. And he's like, I'm not a conservative. Everything he said in there is pretty much conservative, but it was just, he's common sense. And that is really, truly, in our opinion, my opinion, what the conservative movement has essentially become. So you will like this episode.
We'll see.
Do you not like Bradley?
No, Bradley's good. It's the part that I find interesting about him is he's really staunch in his ways.
Yeah.
And when they are conservative and you're super staunch in your ways, you are usually not in my lane. And that's where it is. It's because I'm not full right, even though I do fully believe in a lot of conservative values, but I'm not super staunch that side. So that's why I'm like, I'm intrigued.
I think I've become, I think I am less right than you. I've come to the conclusion, I think, based on some of my, I don't know.
And then you call me a libertarian. You said I was all girly over
You
Joe.
fangirled over Joe Jorgensen.
No,
I can't.
Fake news. Fake
I don't
news.
know. I fangirled over Donald Trump Jr. I'm not gonna lie. I got a picture with him this last week. I did. I fangirled. Okay, it happens. Granted, Don Jr., Joe Jorgensen. But hey, but you do you. I'm
You
just
already
kidding.
know. I told everybody a long time ago. Don Jr. Browns. I'm in his corner. I like him a lot. For sure.
Him and DeSantis. I don't think he's got. I don't. Based on his 10 minutes of speaking, I think he just wants to stay involved because it's like you look at these people. Why do I like him so much? And if anybody's wondering, obviously this is not the youth. This is not the Youth in Revolt. We've got two ladies backstage, Emma and Addison. We'll introduce them shortly. This is the Youth in Revolt episode. We're just warming it up, getting a little opening going on. But when he talked, it's just. They have plenty of money. We all know they have plenty of money. At this point, all they get is flack from people and a few high fives when they go in public. So why are they doing it if not for the greater good of what they believe in this country? And that's why I appreciate them and that family so much. I think Trump is a little bit. I think Senior has a little bit more of a narcissistic side, which I think you have to have in order to be president. But I truly believe. The fact that they are staying involved shows to me what they are truly trying to do.
No, I agree. And that whole family, look, they always move as a unit. Mm-hmm. They stay together, right?
Yeah.
And Trump grew up in a time that, you needed to be stone cold at times. And the way you did business in New York, you needed to be firm.
100%.
That's where it comes from. Like, people give him a little bit of slack there. Like, that's where he grew up, and that's how things are done. Especially Russo, as you know, you get into business. There's no BS. It's just done. Like,
100%. But you'll like the Bradley episode because in the beginning of the episode he starts out negative, and Barb, he's like, "What can we really do? What can we really do?" And by the end of the episode, he's like, "You know what? You've inspired me to actually start taking action." He's like, "I want to promote people like you, people like all this different thing." And I was like, it's fun to watch him. He goes, "You closed me, Barb. You closed me." So you're going to like that. So make sure you check out American Snippets. The last couple of pieces of housekeeping. Concert Avengers tomorrow night, episode number 21. Everybody that I thought was going to be on is not, so we're going to have Kevin back. Casey should be there, possibly Eric's. If Suni makes it out of the monsoon, she'll make it out of the monsoon. If her internet makes it out of the monsoon. And we got a great change makers tomorrow night from Love Jessica. Jennifer and Mallory are going to be with us. It's essentially a charity that is there to help assist moms and families that have lost a child before childbirth. And really excited about that. As usual, Nikki had a great find on that one, and looking forward to that show tomorrow night. So that's at 7 p.m. Eastern time, and Concert Avengers will be at 9. All right. Anything else that we could delay and make our ladies backstage nervous and like, we're just going to keep sitting here? I guess we're not going to. Okay. No? Got anything, Casey?
Just fun government outfits. We'll talk about tomorrow during Concert Avengers. It'll be fun.
Love it. Yes. He's not the best color man in the business for nothing. All right. We're going to make some introductions. We've got Emma and Addison. I'm going to bring them both up, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves a little bit. Emma, I'm bringing you up, and Addison, I'm bringing you up. How you guys doing? So, just thumbs up. Awesome. All right. Emma, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell everybody how old you are as well. Say hello to everybody.
Hi, I'm Emma. I'm 16. I'm a junior in high school, and I'm a conservative.
Sounds like an AA meeting. My name is Emma. I'm in high school, and I'm a conservative. Okay. Addison, go ahead and introduce yourself as well.
Hi, my name is Addison. I'm from Oklahoma. I'm 17 years old, and I'm also a conservative.
I love it. So Emma and I know Addison's mom. Emma and I actually met about a month ago or so, maybe even a little bit less, in Texas. She was picking up. She's in the horse world. She does barrel racing, and it's so funny. Like, Kelly knows that for some odd reason I must have a face for politics, because I walked outside after they had been working with the horse forever, and out of nowhere, her dad was like, "Yeah, well, the schools, because she, the dating thing, and all the boys are liberal, and she can't do this." And next thing you know, it became an hour and a half political conversation. Apparently, I have that effect. I don't know. So, but Emma's brilliant, and from what I know about Addison, her mom speaks incredibly high of her, and I'm very excited to hear her opinions on a lot of different stuff. And I will be watching the comments on this episode to see if there's questions. Casey helped me out with it as well. If there's questions you have for these young ladies, again, we're not going to be hammering home like political issues unless they come up, but just the state of affairs in this country. So, ladies, what I want to start with is, first off, what it's like to be young and conservative in the year 2021. Emma, I'll let you go first.
It's been difficult only because of social media. I think being young, it's definitely prominent in our lives, and you don't see hardly anything that, unless you choose to, you don't see hardly anything that's put to your attention that is conservative. And it's difficult to have your own opinions when everybody else's opinions are being shoved at you.
Pretty good point. So, Emma, you go to a school in pretty rural Missouri, correct?
Yes.
Got it. And in that school, I mean, we would assume rural communities tend to lean more right. But in your case, how is it actually in high school shaping out politically in terms of the spread of kids?
So, although I am in a rural community, my school tends to lean more left, and that's with teachers and students, which is unfortunate on the teacher side because I don't think that politics should be necessarily pushed on us in our education unless it's equal. I think that you're seeing more left-leaning students simply because that's all you see in media and celebrities that are kind of mainstream. And, when your teachers are talking about more left things, it's difficult to form an opinion for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great answer. Addison, in terms of, so this is different. So we've got, and Julie might be able to jump on. She's not feeling great after traveling, but Julie's in college. So Julie faces a lot of the left coming at her. Emma gets to be somewhere in the middle. Addison has a slightly different experience because she is homeschooled. So Addison, what is it like to be homeschooled? Which I'm not going to lie. And I've probably talked to your mom years and years ago, like, homeschool really? Which right now it's like, gosh, she was way smarter than I thought she was. So yeah, tell us a little bit about your experience with the other students that you work with as a homeschool student.
Well, it is challenging because a lot of my friends, they believe kind of like the same things I do, but they're not as passionate about it, or like they don't care as much. And so whenever like people are like, my friends are like, oh, what are you interested in lately? And I say, oh, politics. And like, well, why do you care about that? It doesn't affect you. And I'm like, well, it kind of does. It affects all of us. So a lot of people, I mean, like their parents, believe the same things that, conservatives do. And so they kind of just like let their parents influence them, I guess, if that makes sense, which, I mean, it's good they trust their parents, but they don't have much of an opinion themselves. And so they seem kind of confused why I'm interested in politics because, I don't know, because I'm young. And so.
So why are you? That's a great point. So, I mean, I think for them, they're in a safe zone. They don't get bombarded. I think a lot of us have gotten so interested in politics because we have faced so much hate from people and we do critical thinking. For you, you're in a spot where you may not have people challenging you as much. So how did you get so interested and involved in politics?
Well, I mean, I didn't get interested in politics until about, I'd say a year and a half ago, like basically whenever the election was like starting to come up and things like that. And so I was like, well, it'd really stink if we had, a Democrat president. Just that's what I was thinking. And so I was like, I should learn more about this stuff. So, I mean, now I'm glad I know more about what's going on because, I mean, it's important to know about like if your freedom is at risk and things like that. I mean, you need to know those things. And so I don't know, I'm at first I was kind of like skeptical, like, it's just like boring, like whatever world events. It really doesn't affect me. But then it's things that do affect you in the future, even if they don't affect you now. And so it's worth learning about. So yeah, it's interesting to me.
Casey, go ahead.
No, I was going to ask. So, and I would like to hear from both of you on this. Is when it comes to politics and not necessarily your position, but when it comes, oh, I clicked mute. Sorry. When it comes to making friends and communicating with them around this, do you just avoid the topic, or do you actually have those conversations with them about difference of views?
Emma, go ahead. Let's have you go first because I know you face a little bit more of a mixed crowd.
Sure.
Yeah, I have friends that are both left and right. I don't avoid conversations. I'm not necessarily a confrontational person. So if someone doesn't approach me about something, I'm not necessarily going to approach them about the topic. I know I have one friend in particular who is very left-leaning, and she has brought some things up to me, not only about politics, but about religion as well. And she's asked me some things about them, and I talked to her about them, but I found that while they ask the question, they're not interested in the answer. So it's difficult.
Hey, Emma, I got a news flash for you. That doesn't change once they get out of the young adult stage. Just to
stop putting that in their mind. People can change.
Yeah. I've had that conversation with adults too. So
Addison, I know again you have a little bit more homogenous crowd, but do you face a similar? Do you have any friends that are kind of in your community or groups that you're with that you know are on the opposite side of the spectrum? And how do you bridge that conversation, or do you avoid it?
So I actually have a couple of family members that are pretty liberal, and I have a couple friends from like church that are also liberal. But my family members, like when I first started getting interested in politics, my aunt, she's like super liberal. So like I would see her like Instagram stories and I'd start like responding to them, being like, I'd like say something like snarky or something, like just like to, I don't know, I guess like start a debate with her. And so that would kind of happen. And then I was like, this is probably a bad idea. It's gonna make things awkward, like at family events, like probably not the best idea with my aunt. And so so I do see I do have like interactions with people from the left side, but whenever I meet people too, and like they're like, oh, so tell me about yourself, and I say I'm interested in politics, they're like, that's not really, like I've had many people tell me like that's not the first thing that you tell people whenever you meet them, because that kind of scares them off, you know, which I can kind of see that, but and so they'll ask more questions, and then like usually they'll kind of agree with me, but I can tell it's kind of a touchy subject to like talk about when you first meet someone. And so but also with some of my friends from church who are liberal, they're pretty like morally sound, if that makes sense. But it's just kind of like small political things that they think differently than I do about. So.
Well, I think young people are going to see what they see on TV, and that's why I think it's so dangerous that celebrities are speaking out so much in a place that they really, no offense, it's not their lane, and not that they're not intelligent people, but it's just mass information that is one-sided and biased. So that was actually, it's funny, you led into my next question talking about people in church and having still a liberal ideal. I find that completely odd. And as a Christian myself, not a perfect Christian by any means, I look at what's going on in the current administration, and I'm baffled that Christians and Catholics can still stand up for what's going on. And again, I think the young people in your church that may feel this way, they probably, just based on kind of how you entered it, they may not quite understand. They just think it's the right, like they think that being Christian is empathetic, and that therefore means Joe Biden loves black people. I don't know. Maybe that's it. But in terms of Christianity, which that's not true. In terms of Christianity, how is it that you think young Christians and how the Christian world can be on the left the way that this day and age faces out? So Addison, I'll stick with you and then go back over to Emma.
So yeah, normally I wouldn't think that you could really be both. But there's one example of a friend of mine. She shared on social media something to do with like how Jesus was a socialist because like he shared with people and things like that. And I was kind of like, that's not what that means. Because it was like Jesus endorses socialism, blah 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 blah. I'm like, no, that's not what it is. So then I
Wait,
just,
who said this?
a friend of mine,
Yeah.
on
Okay.
an Instagram like story. It's like
Okay.
Jesus supports socialism. I was like, no.
No.
Anyways,
No.
so there's things like that you can kind of see. They kind of twist it. It's like, oh, something about sharing or blah 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 blah. Giving things to the poor. It was like that kind of a thing. And so we're taking care of like widows, and it was like, oh yeah. And they like twisted it around, and I was like, no.
No. See, the cool part about like our system of capitalism is the people that are Christian that do well for themselves get to give to those people. And that's just the way that a normal world works. A modern world works. It's not like, we're not bartering tables and chairs. So it's just, it's unfortunate. And Addison, to what you also said before, fact is what both you and Emma are, and young people that are conservatives, you are, and don't be afraid of speaking to adults, because the more educated you are and the more educated you become as you go, you are the ultimate Trojan horse. You can literally, as long as you don't let the ultra left adult talk over you, you guys come from a perspective where people almost have to be nice at first, and then you can really hammer them on the backside. Like they don't even know it hits them. If you hit them with raw facts, you already are younger, so you have more of an empathetic side than us cynical older people. But you are a Trojan horse. So I encourage both of you girls to realize that your youth right now is a better weapon than it is something that takes away from the conversation. So you're stronger than you think you are in terms of that. So get up in there. Emma, same question. How is it that people can be conservative, or I'm sorry, liberal, bad word, Democrat and conservative in today's climate?
I agree with Addison. I find it really hard for people to be both. I understand the accepting everyone because Jesus loves everyone. Mm-hmm. But there are just so many core Christian beliefs that don't correspond with democratic beliefs. And so it's really hard for me to understand how you could be both ultimately. And I mean, there's one kid who goes to my school and he is very left, and I don't know. It's very hard to hold a conversation with him because it's frustrating to me as someone who tries to be a very outspoken Christian. It's hard for me to.
So is he Christian as well?
Yes, he goes to my church. But he had an issue with our church. He does not attend with his family anymore because we did not have a female minister, and he did not agree with the fact that we did not have a female and a male minister. So,
yeah. I say we all pray for that individual.
Yeah. So
what happened to judging by the content of the character, not the gender, race, any of these things? That's a lot. Which now is going to lead me into the next question, which is indoctrination. And again, it's going to be a little different for Addison because, you have probably a much more guided course. And Eric, I see a lot. You have great questions, and I'm going to be getting to them, I promise. But in terms of the actual coursework, and again, you come from a more rural school, so I'm assuming it avoids things like critical race theory. Obviously, I think even in Missouri, I think it's been outlawed so far. I don't know. Granted, we've talked about this, we've been teaching elements of critical race theory forever. Actually, that's another question. In terms of schooling, people talk about the misinformation that we get around the Civil War, around slavery, etc. And they talk about it and they're like, for decades, we've been teaching the wrong thing. I remember what I got taught, and it's completely accurate to everything that would be kind of being recited in the basic historical elements of critical race theory, which was Civil War was fought over slavery. Not over was it land rights or what's the other side of the coin that people say that it was fought over? I don't remember. But anyways, I've heard both sides. I was taught slavery, and then at the same token taught essentially all of the facets, everything except for like a lot of the 1619 stuff. But besides that, so what kind of stuff do they teach in modern day schooling? And I'm curious about homeschool as well. But Emma, what are they teaching in? Are you public school or private?
I'm public school.
So what are they teaching in public school in Middle Missouri?
I mean, like regarding the Civil War, like you said, it was always just about, it was fought over slavery. I mean, I've never really noticed that our actual coursework was necessarily one way or the other. It's just, once I got to high school, I noticed the teachers themselves would bring it upon themselves to add their own opinions. So,
do you know what political side your teachers are on?
For the majority, yes.
Yep. Really?
Yes.
And what side are the bulk of them on?
Or the bulk of them are Democratic.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting. So go ahead.
It's frustrating as a Republican student because, I mean, in our school, we're not allowed to talk about God or anything. We're not supposed to bring up our religious beliefs, our political beliefs, because this is school. We're there to learn. We're there to get an education. But our teachers bring up their beliefs. And since they're usually more one side, they tend to actively favor students that express that they're more left than right.
That's crazy. This is a good point. So I've heard this as well. A lot of the teacher friends that I have in the past are Democrats, and again, no issues with having either side. So that leads my next question before I get over to Addison on that same topic. You come from a rural area that I'm assuming is as if you look at the demographics where you live, it would be more conservative than Democrat, but it's starting to, the younger population is starting to become more Democrat as opposed to conservative. So the question becomes, do you think it is the fact that, we spend the predominance of our time as young people with teachers, not with our parents? Is that the effect, or is it a little bit of Hollywood? What do you think it is that's leading to even having leftist students in rural Missouri?
I think it's a mix of things. I think when your teachers are talking about more left things, then, you're at school 7 hours a day. That's what you hear. If that's what you hear all day, then that's what you are actively, even if you're not actively acknowledging the fact that you're hearing these things, you're still hearing them. And I mean, every time you go on social media, all of the celebrities are saying these things. And I don't always think they know what they're talking about. I think they're just going with whatever everyone else is saying. And because if they disagree, then they, the whole cancel culture, people stop watching them, and that's how they make their living. So,
yeah. Addison, what do you think in terms of your schooling as a homeschooled student? Your curriculum, is it pretty accurate in terms of accurate's a very hard word when you're talking about history because we don't actually know. In terms of the way that you guys are taught, do you think it differs from a public school system?
Oh yeah, for sure. So my schooling is online, and it's a private Christian charter school. And so my teachers are very they are all Republican, and so they do share a lot of their beliefs in the classes. And I mean, it's all things I agree with, so I don't mind it. But I can see how if you're a left student in that schooling system, they would probably not feel comfortable. But I mean, the online school, it claims to be a Christian right-leaning school. So it's kind of what you would expect. But for public school, I mean, they're not supposed to share any of that kind of stuff. So that's why, I mean, ours tells you that it's going to do that. So
right. Yeah, I mean, that's the point of being able to direct your child to a private school. And obviously with public, to know that in a rural community, and this is where, and Casey's going to give you guys a question, this is where parents have to start speaking up, because unfortunately the school board, as we've learned with all the events we've done with Be the Change, is really the number one way to create change in a community. And the fact that we are letting teachers give their political opinions that are now superseding probably local parents, that shows the future of our country, the future voters. I mean, we've only got 3 more years until we have our next presidential election. We've got midterms coming up where a lot of these high school students are going to come up and they're going to vote strictly away that their very left-leaning teachers are essentially influencing them, which is pretty scary. Casey, what's your question?
So I got a question for both of you. Addison, it's a little bit different for you since you're homeschooled, but I'm going to phrase it in a slightly different way for you. So my question is I want to know, so Emma, are you taught more about money and financial and how you handle money, and that your banking and how you can control that and save it for the future? Do you learn that in school, or do you learn that from your parents?
So my parents have done a really good job of already teaching me these things. I know there is a personal finance class that everyone is required to take as a junior or senior in high school. However, I've heard that there's like nothing to it. I haven't taken it yet. I'm going to take it this fall. But I've heard that it's basically doesn't do anything.
Okay. Cool. Thank you. And so Addison, yours is a little different since you're homeschooled. And by the way, I love that idea. My wife and I are homeschooling our kids. So they will be growing up doing the same thing. But do you feel you are learning more from your parents or from the school curriculum on how to manage your money with banking and all of that?
I would say both, because a lot of my school and like my parents' family doesn't contradict each other at all, and like it's very like, I don't know, it's all very positive, which is good, but it's all, yeah, I mean, I'd say both for me.
Yeah.
I see there could be overlap there, so absolutely, I get that.
Yeah, and they don't do enough of that. I think it's been established that the lack of actual give a crap for the future of American youth in order to take care of themselves has been a failure for decades, which has been the success of homeschool. As much as probably when I was younger, I was probably, like homeschool kids, whatever. But ultimately, they weren't as well adjusted, and it's gotten better just because of the systems in place, but they weren't as well adjusted with dealing with other people, but they were much better at being prepared for real life. So it was kind of an interesting give or take. And now I think they've gotten a lot better with homeschool in terms of bringing kids together and having a little bit more of social skills than as opposed to, when I was 13, I pretty much thought everybody homeschooled was just an Amish kid that lived in the corner of the universe, like Casey probably did, as a Mormon kid. Just kidding. This is a good question from Darcy Wood. Did they do fake polls during the election? They did with my 6th grade class, and kids were threatening suicide over the bullying they got from their votes, which is insane. Before we go, I remember as a kid we used to do these. It was back when I was a lefty. I remember it was during the Clinton election in '92, and I still remember to this day. There was a girl in my school that was from Arkansas that had just moved to Missouri. And we were so jacked that we thought that Bill Clinton was going to win that election. And that was, which, by the way, I have a whole philosophy on the fact that Bill Clinton is actually, if you look at his policies, was besides NAFTA, was actually pretty conservative in today's world. Just throwing that out there. Anyways, moving on. Emma, did they do polls in your school?
They did not at this election. They did when Obama was reelected. I do remember that one, but they have not for the past 2 elections.
Interesting. Is your school mixed, or is it predominantly demographically white?
It's fairly mixed.
Okay. Interesting. I'm wondering if I don't know, if they thought things could escalate. I have no idea. I mean, this is reason enough to call it off. Let's scare kids away from the democratic process at a young age. Might as well at this point. Addison, did you guys do like something fun in your house? Like all put a piece of paper in the same box?
No.
What about, well, I mean, it's modern day. You guys can do polls online. Did you guys do that at all with like the groups that you learn with?
No, we didn't. No.
Okay. There was another question that I thought was interesting in terms of, again, this is going to lean a little bit more towards Emma, and then we're going to get back into some of the questions that I said that we'd be talking about. There was another question about kind of the sex ed, drug use type stuff. I don't remember where it was up here, but do you guys, and yeah, I guess the question for Addison as well, does your curriculum have anything involving sex ed or some of the stuff that we hear on the news about, teachers teaching about transgenders being, all the rage and stuff like that? Is that an actual thing that you see in your public school, Emma?
Not anything with the trans. We do have a health class that teaches us about sex ed, and then in elementary school we had DARE, which was for drugs.
Yeah.
Although they have discontinued that, they don't do it anymore because
Why?
They had decided that it was not making a big enough impact in the decrease of drug use, and so they got rid of it.
You know why that's bull crap? And I'm doing well not saying bull-esh. But do you know why that's bull crap? Is the great part about that, and I can see why it's a flawed program. It was another chance to work with police officers in school. And that's how we built really great relationships. I don't remember his name, but I remember my DARE officer. So I had a positive outlook on policing from a couple different things, and that was one of them, was having this police officer that cared whether or not it helped drug use or not. He cared. I think that's one of the things we don't think about when it comes to things that we don't necessarily need. We've had the conversation about cursive writing before, and I think you guys may have actually won me over on the importance of cursive writing on a previous episode and why. But it's the same type thing. It's not the exact learning about drugs. It's also about the fact that you are seeing a police officer being good to kids. So in terms of DARE, that program's no longer there. And then you said your health class covers basic sex ed issues.
It does, yeah. And I agree with the police officer with DARE, because I remember, we've always had school officers. We have one or two walking around our school hallways at all times. And I remember, he would bring us pictures of his kids. We all would have, DARE days where we would hang out. And I remember everyone having very positive interactions with him, which you don't get anymore. And we still have the school police officers, but I couldn't tell you any one of their names. We don't do anything with them. So
to my mother in the comment box, oddly enough, like kids would snicker when they'd like pull out the joints and like the different stuff. But I don't think DARE, I don't think it was made fun of much as a kid. No, I was made fun of way more than DARE was. Trust me. Addison, what kind of stuff do they have in the homeschool curriculum in terms of what every public school kid goes through in terms of basic health, and in some cases now a lot more than that?
Yeah, my education doesn't really include much of any of that stuff. If anything, they will talk about transgenderism and like how it's wrong and things like that, like in my like Bible class. But we don't really talk about anything else besides that. So yeah. Sorry,
I was shaking in my head at my mom making fun of me because I was deserved to be made fun of. Yeah.
I was laughing at the same.
She bullies me. I get bullied by my mother. All right. So I want to talk about now, we've got about a half of the show left, or a little bit less than half of the show. Talk about current issues.
Can I ask one more school question?
Oh, I'm sorry. I totally forgot, Casey. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. And this is just kind of a generic one. And the reason why is one of my favorite days in my 35 years being on this planet is September 12th, 2001. And that is following September 11th, 2001. I would like to know, do you guys feel that you were taught a lot of information? And we'll start with Addison this time, but do you guys feel that you were taught a lot of information about that day, or do you feel that You just got some basic information or just to where you're comfortable?
Yeah, I think I was taught quite a bit. I don't know how much I remember to this day, but I was taught like pretty extensively about that event. But I know about something like recent in the news about how they're trying to like change it, how like Muslims weren't really responsible for it, or something like that because it's racist. But that's yeah.
So that's interesting. So say that again about what they're assuming, just kind of the look on like the Muslim population. That was the racist side of talking about September 11th.
No,
Did I misunderstand that? Sorry.
No, so I think I heard something recent about how the public education system is going to like change some of their like history books or something like that to where like it's saying basically they don't know for sure if Muslims are responsible because it sounds racist to say that they were responsible for 9/11, and so they were going to change it or something like that. But I don't know if that ever happened.
God bless it. And again, this goes to internal conversations. It's like, yes, it's not all Muslims. It's not even most Muslims. It's like, it's not, there's not an issue with all gay people or all transgenders or all black. Like we are talking about the bad people in every group, including white people. There's some white assholes out there, plain and simple. There are some conservatives that are just really crappy people. Are you pointing at me? Hey, there are some really crappy people out there, and it does not matter if they are Muslim, black, white. It doesn't matter. But what does matter is the accuracy of truth and understanding that it was extremists, it was extreme Muslims, extremist Islamic faith that toppled the Twin Towers, which, as you were having this conversation, was quite scary to realize that neither of these two were alive on September 11th. Holy goodness gracious.
I want to add to that, but I want to hear Emma's response on that.
Yeah, so I remember the first time learning about it was in elementary school, maybe 3rd or 4th grade. But we didn't learn anything. I mean, we had our few minutes of silence. I remember they would come on the intercom and say, in honor of 9/11 and the lives that were lost, we are going to take a few minutes of silence. And we would sit in silence in our classrooms, and then that was it. And once I got to, I think, 7th or 8th grade, I know in high school, like we didn't do the minute of silence, which I think is disappointing. I don't know why we don't do that anymore. And I know a lot of kids are like, oh, it gets repetitive learning about it every year, but it's our history. Why don't we talk about it?
We still have Thanksgiving every year, where we supposedly, the Pilgrims and the Native Americans got along really well and shared turkey, which didn't really happen. We still celebrate that, so
Right. Well, and the reason why I pose this question, and Russo, you realize the same thing as I realized this last night. My nephew is here at my house, as you know, and I asked him about it, and there's very little that he knows about it. He thought there was only like one plane. I'm like, no, there were 4.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't know anything really about what happened on 9/11. And so I was curious, is it a generational thing? Because he's he's 5 years younger than you girls. And so that's where I was curious if I can determine a difference in there, but it seems like there's a trend. But as being homeschooled, you're being taught more of the information than necessarily what they're getting out of the public school.
Yeah. So somebody said something interesting. Why couldn't they call them Al-Qaeda or Muslim terrorists? And I know we're talking about what was potentially a bill passed. I have heard that now. Once you've said it, I realize I've heard that they were making that shift or thought about making that shift. So just posing a thought, and girls, feel free to answer this, quick thought process. But if we're not trying to group Muslims in with Muslim terrorists, then why is anybody that is a conservative that is white considered a white supremacist? Oh, wait. Exactly. Okay. All right. So let's talk about the future. Let's talk about what you guys face. And I know, Emma, you and I talked for a long time, just kind of the struggle, not just in your schooling, but just as an outlook for the country. And your father, I know, has stepped in. Actually, this is a great time to talk about that. Tell everybody a little bit about what your dad now does, because he wanted to actually get involved.
Yeah, so last year with the election, my dad was really upset with changes he saw in the country. And my mom and I told him that if he wanted to make a change, then he needed to start at the county level, because some of the biggest things that impact you are at the county. So he was just recently sworn in as the presiding commissioner of our county. And so he's been there for almost 2 months now, I think. And he's been able to make some changes recently, which is super exciting to see some things happening that we hadn't seen previously.
It's pretty cool. And you know what? That's actually that'll lead into the next point, and the question about what's going on. So the county level is so important. The state level is so important. The school board is so important. Local voting rights are incredibly important. And right now, what is being done, especially from the Texas Democrats, is they're going to D.C. and they're doing their own version of a filibuster to try to pass H.R. 1. And what H.R. 1 would do, if you ladies aren't fully familiar with it, is essentially creating a nationwide voting law that supersedes the state. It actually goes against the Constitution. Am I right, Casey? Is that the best way to sum it up?
In super simple terms, yes.
Yeah. So essentially what that bill is doing is it makes it very difficult in all reality from my perspective to have a free and fair election, and for the states to actually have the rights to have those. So knowing what your father is doing, stepping in, is a big deal. What is your opinion on the philosophy of going against the Constitution in this level? And do either of you have any experience kind of talking about the voting rights, state voting rights and national voting rights?
I don't, not a whole lot, no. I have a lot of experience talking about that.
Addison, how about you?
No, neither do I.
Okay, so this one is going to be a challenge to both of you. This is going to be something, because this is what the stuff that you're going to be bringing up with the adults when you're the Trojan horse, because voting rights, as we've seen in the last election, are going to be the most important way to have a future that is a bipartisan country at best. And it's just going to be very interesting to look to see if they're able to manipulate an election in a similar way. And I'm not saying the election was thievery in any way, shape, or form. I'm saying there was issues, and we'll just leave it at that. So yeah, go ahead and look up a little bit more about state voting rights and HR 1, because you girls would be great to be able to have that conversation with an adult that thinks that they know everything and thinks that voter ID is racist. So put that in your quiver for the next time you have that conversation. So we'll talk about the election. I know you girls didn't get to vote. What is your opinion on what happened this last year? You can feel free to speak freely. If they kick us off for saying something, I don't care anymore. So go ahead, say what you want to. Say your total honest thoughts. There you go, Addison.
I really do think that there was fraud and things like that. I mean, I'm not trying to sound all like Trump or anything, but I mean, I do think that there was fraud and that it wasn't a legitimate election.
Why?
Well, I think there's a lot of proof, and I follow a lot of popular Ben Shapiro, Steven Crowder, Candace Owens, and I support all three of them very much so. And so, I've listened to a lot of their things, and they've showed actual facts and proof that there has been fraud. And so, I mean, I believe that, and so I don't think that those things are made up. And I've seen actual videos too of it taking place. So. Even though those videos do get banned like the day after they're shared. So just saying.
It's mind-boggling to me. The biggest piece of evidence that I can say that I saw, besides the fact, and to give you girls a little context, we had numerous people that checked their vote afterwards between Cash's show and our show that legit showed that they did not vote. Cash himself, they did a news story saying, big conservative didn't even vote in the last election, when I know and he knows exactly where he dropped his mail-in ballot off at because he was out of town, his absentee ballot. So we know on a microcosm, on a micro level, that there was in our own world people that votes that didn't show up. But the video, people are like, how can you prove it? The video in Georgia about this with the suitcases being brought from underneath the table that my friends shame me for, my liberal friends will shame me for, and say, yeah, but. And I said, what's the but? And the local official says it still followed the chain of custody. Nothing was wrong there. And people go, see, did you hear what he said? Nothing was wrong there. And I'm like, I can literally, like, if I'm doing something wrong, I could just say that, no, that's actually the way things are supposed to be done. And somehow the American public just believes it now. Like, that was such a blatant, and the things that they're showing in Georgia right now are that things look photocopied. That's the one thing they keep saying, is that things are the same thing, photocopied, the same voting slip. So it's like, that suitcase might mean a little more than we thought. And now they're saying there's issues with chain of custody, but we just believe this guy, and the American public only hears one side now because we know that CNN and the left isn't going to present that evidence anymore. So we've just separated it. I went into a tangent. I apologize. Emma, what do you think about the last election?
I also think there was so much happening, and I really struggled with how little it got looked into afterwards, because everybody talked about it and then it seemed to disappear. It seemed to kind of just like taper off. And someone had made the comment to me about the Georgia situation with the briefcases, and they're like, oh, well, if it's just there, it's not that big of a deal. Well, if it's happening there, then it could be happening everywhere. And it is a big deal because, I mean, this is the man who is running our country. So I'd like it to be as honest and fair as possible.
This is a great question in terms of voting. Do you feel the voting age should be, and that's part of HR 1, I believe. That's one of the tenets of it. Do you feel the voting age should be lowered to 16?
And I want to add one little note to that. And at the end, if it's a yes or a no, do you feel that the people around you in your circle of friends or that you get along with, you would trust their vote?
Yeah. I personally don't think that 16-year-olds are even mature enough to comprehend what's going on. Which, I mean, at 16, I don't think that I would have made the right choice either. I'm not sure. I mean, like, you have to be more, I don't know, mentally developed, I guess. I think even I think even 18-year-olds, some of them don't even know what to do. So 16 is definitely way too young, and they're way too influenced by social media that they can make their own choice. So they don't have their own opinions at that age, I feel like.
Yeah. Emma, what do you think?
I agree. I mean, I feel like at this point I could make an educated decision. However, looking at my peers, I don't think they could. Only because I live in a household where politics is discussed and we have conversations about it. And my parents have let me make my own decisions and gather my own information. They have not pushed their decisions on me at all. So even with my own kind of information grabbing, I've made my own decisions regarding politics. I just don't think that 16-year-olds should be choosing who is in charge of our country. I really don't.
I want to be very clear. When Emma and I started talking politics with her dad there, Emma led the conversation, not her father. Emma spoke 100% for herself.
Hang on, one more voting question I got.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
So the other voting question I have is, depending on, and I don't want to get personal into that information, but 2022 is an election year. Depending on where your age falls, you might be able to vote next year. Do you feel that you're capable and knowledgeable enough to be able to vote next year?
Addison, I think you're actually eligible. So yeah, Emma, you're on the cusp. Addison, what about you?
Yeah, I think so. Like me personally, I don't have a whole lot of faith in other people just because they don't know what's going on at all. Like they might know who to vote for, but they have no idea what's going on with anything else. So I don't know. That's.
Yeah. I personally think the voting age should go up to 21, and that's just because of the way. To be honest, I don't even know anymore, because even college students, it's not going to get any better. It's a one-sided, biased. Essentially, we have to hope for the group of people that have not educated themselves in politics at a young age. They just believe what they see on TV. I have to hope that they are too lazy to go vote. That's the only thing that I can hope for. If they're too lazy to learn, maybe they'll be too lazy to vote. I don't know. Emma, go ahead and answer Casey's question.
Yeah. I think that I agree with Addison. I think I personally would be able to vote. I think that it's honestly hard at more of a local level. I think people know less about what's happening at a local level than they do for the whole country, because I mean, even myself, I've been kind of forced to learn more and more about our county as my dad has taken on this job. But before this year, I probably couldn't have told you much about what I would be voting for. I know the main people that would be running that if I had to vote, I would vote for, because they're main people in our community and I know them and I know their beliefs and I agree with their beliefs, but I couldn't tell you anything specific about them. I think now I could, but I think honestly, I agree. I think the voting age should be increased, only because, I mean, people are so slow to mature, which can
slower than ever. Yeah.
But yes, and maturity is just so slow right now. And so I think that even 18-year-olds, I mean, I think of like the seniors at my high school, I'm like, I would not want them voting for my president. No.
Yeah, we live in a different world. I mean, they talked about, God, I saw this infographic about Thomas Jefferson, the founding fathers, and how young they were. And the oldest one in the group was like 35. I can't remember who that was, but they were all super young. And it's like, we have raised our children soft, which isn't necessarily bad. We've raised them to essentially get to be kids for a longer period of time. We've raised them to be able to try new things and not have to grow up quickly. But at the same time, that also makes them very dangerous when it comes to the fact that we let 18-year-olds decide the future of this country. But from the mental aspect of somebody younger, this is a great question, because Casey and I have had this conversation. We deal with the idiocy so much. We look at the news, and as we get older, our age, all the way up to some of the people that watch this stuff that's in their 70s and 80s, we get angry. Like, it's hard to not get wrapped up. Is it a little bit easier as somebody younger to just disagree and move on? Addison?
I mean, sort of. Like, can you be a little bit more specific?
Yeah. So it's like when you see something on TV that maybe bothers you, or your family's watching, you're like, oh my goodness, like, Joe Biden is saying this, and we'll talk about the vaccines next. So coming soon to Truth Will Set You Free this episode, we're going to talk about vaccines before we end it. But like when you see something about that you just vehemently disagree with, and the lies, and this question came up when we were talking about the voting for the voting fraud, and just realizing that people are just blatantly lying. How do you deal with it? Is it just easier to just kind of do one of those kind of things?
I mean, sort of. In my family, we talk about it a lot. We have a lot of discussions about politics. And so, I mean, we talk about it. Sometimes, like, my parents will be a little on the angry side. And, like, but, I mean, there's not much we can do about it. So, I mean, if anything, at the most, it's just being angry. So.
Gotcha. Eric, by the way, I said that there should be some kind of testing, but apparently that's considered voter suppression. Whatever. It's not voter suppression? Showing an ID. Okay, moving on. Emma, what's your opinion when you hear stuff that you vehemently disagree with? Like when you and I first started talking, you were talking about the boys in your school, and it's like the idiocy that you face on a normal everyday process. When people just like the kid in your church, or when you hear something like, can't go to church anymore, you guys don't have a female pastor. When you hear stuff like that, and whether it be the lies in the election or just the frustration of modern day thinking, How do you deal with that?
I've gotten really good at just smiling and nodding, only because I am surrounded by it all the time.
Yeah.
With school, my mom is a school teacher as well, so she gets a lot of it. I think my dad, he's been retired before he took on this job, and so he would get really frustrated. And I think it was because he wasn't having to interact with people that disagreed with him as much. I mean, all of my classes, I sit next to at least one person who doesn't agree with me. And so if I picked a fight or if I argued with every single person that disagreed with me, I would never have time for anything else. So I think I've just gotten really good at, that's great, and move on.
I feel like Kelly, my girlfriend, is probably watching that right now going, see, you could just move on, Anthony. Just move on. I have trouble doing that. It's something I'm working on internally. All right, we're going to kind of just wrap up with a couple quick questions. The biggest thing also is, with schooling, obviously, Addison, you don't have to worry about this. COVID's a huge deal again. They're scaring the crap out of everybody with the Delta variant and forcing vaccinations. And I was even watching Fox News earlier where they were just talking about just how it was the weirdest thing. I heard a guy, one of the hosts on the show, say, legitimately, the vaccinated people are getting COVID right now. And if that doesn't this is literally what he said, if that doesn't show you how important it is to get a vaccination, I don't know what else is. I wanted to rewind and record that. I'm like, I don't know how this is real life and these are news people. But when it comes to vaccinating young people, especially those going back to school, what are your opinions on that? Emma, let's start with you in the public school system.
Yeah, so I was in school full-time last year and we had to wear masks, which it's really hard to learn and from my mom teach in a mask. And I know this summer we didn't wear masks in summer school, and going into this fall, it was going to be fine. We weren't going to wear masks. They weren't going, you wouldn't have to wear a mask even if you weren't vaccinated. However, with the new Delta variant and the cases are rising, Missouri made national news for the cases of COVID increasing.
Yeah, I saw that.
Which I'm like, oh gosh, Missouri, really? But going into fall, the school board is planning to kind of regroup, and they're talking about potentially mandating masks if you are not vaccinated. Which is frustrating because I don't plan on getting vaccinated, just because there's so much unknown surrounding it. But I also don't want to wear a mask to school. So there's the fine line where do you put up with it and do you wear a mask to school because you don't want to get vaccinated, or do you go online or try something else? Unfortunately, there's no good private schools around me, and our school is not exactly set up for good online school. So it's kind of a catch-22.
I'm going to encourage you to I don't know. What I was about to tell you is to wear the mask, just because, and I see things like this, FDA approval with data behind it. Here's my problem with FDA approval, and it's going to happen no matter how many potential deaths there are out there. And Emma, I do want you to bring up some of your personal stories on that before we get done with this episode, because people that have been sick from the vaccine. It's going to get FDA approval is my guess. We also have things in our current system like aspartame that got FDA approval and still is being used in our food that has been proven to cause major issues. You've got the whole thing with sunscreen finally coming out. By the way, I've been saying this for 10 years. My mom likes to say 25. She's been saying it for 25 years. We have things that have FDA approval that still is killing people on a daily basis. So now the FDA approval is going to come in at a time that is going to be right when people are finally about to say enough is enough. And then bam, they're going to slam FDA approval. They're going to force the military to then get it at that point. It's going to be a whole different ballpark, whole different world. So we need to prepare by stop saying it doesn't have FDA approval, because eventually it will, and it's not going to change what it's actually doing to people. So let's just be careful with the word FDA approval. Addison, before I go over to you, Emma, talk about some of it. Obviously, you don't need to use names or exactly how you know them, but you actually in your personal life have friends that have had a direct effect, death, and a severe illness from the vaccination, correct?
Yeah, they just happen to have I know it's targeted like people with heart diseases and I'm trying to word this autoimmune diseases.
Yeah.
And it unfortunately has affected them. I know one of my friends, their uncle died. We had another close friend that passed away, and I actually just read an article today about the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, and I can't remember the name of what it does, but it causes like temporary paralysis, and Johnson & Johnson has like outright said, hey, this is happening, but you can still get it.
Yeah.
And so
there's a doctor that dropped a whole bunch of information. And the great thing about the whole thing that Emma just said is she's not just talking about articles she's read. These are personal people. And as I've started like doing the count in my head, I do have way more friends and first degree of separation that got COVID, 100%. But the amount of the amount of like actual illness and sickness of first degree of separation to second degree of separation is not that far off from COVID. I know a lot of people that were sick for days. Emma, Kelly has a friend that wanted to compete, I believe, in the Calgary rodeo. I think that's where she was going, and she got it, and she was deathly ill for 2 weeks. I just had a TikTok that I saw of this 20-year-old girl that had myocarditis and was actually saying it's fine. This is part of being, helping people. This is a healthy 20-year-old going like, there's such a brainwashing at this point to saying vaccines are all well and good that even if I almost die, there's a greater purpose. And the last thing I'll say before I go over to Addison, one of the things I was watching on the news tonight, they were talking about how people that have had the vaccine, yes, they're getting ill, but they're not getting really sick from it. And they're not getting hospitalized. That's complete bullshit. There's no data showing that. Sorry, I said the S word. There's no data showing that, for one. And secondly, there's major news stories. One of the VPs of Oracle that was a huge funder, one of the huge voices behind the vaccine, who they still say died with a purpose because he was trying to help people. He died from his second shot of the vaccine, and they even admitted that it was from the vaccine. And this is a healthy 40-something-year-old male. So ultimately, yes. I'm sorry. I need to switch that. He died from COVID. He didn't die from the vaccine. He died from COVID. So yes, you can die from COVID with the vaccine. Anyways, Addison, what's your opinion on kind of the whole mandate of vaccinations or going back to masks and all these different things with the vaccine?
Yeah, so like Emma said, I don't have any faith in the vaccine, and there's a lot of unknowns behind it. But yeah, I have no plan on getting it. And I mean, as much as I don't like masks either, I'd rather wear a mask than get the vaccine because, I mean, there can be permanent side effects from the vaccine. You can, like, my mom, she says this a lot. You can always get the vaccine, but you can never unget it. So, like, there's no point on getting it right now. For me personally, I don't feel like I'm at much of a risk. So, I have no desire to get it.
You know what I would love is for all the students in Emma's school that don't get the vaccine and don't want to wear a mask to say screw it. I mean, in all reality, that's. I mean, we're looking at what's going on in other countries, and if there is enough students that stand up, then you know what? Make national news. How many students do you have in your school, Emma?
About 1,200 in just my high school.
Oh, big school. So if you were to be a betting woman, how many students do you think are going to be vaccinated going into this next school year?
I'd say at least 2/3, maybe more. And actually last year, the very last week of school, kids, large groups of kids started showing up to school without masks. And they sent all of them home. Finals were happening and they were sending kids home. They're like, well, if you don't want to follow our rules, then you can just leave. And so they were sending them home.
Emma, I'm gonna make a suggestion because I'm gonna tell you you're already ready for college. You're plenty smart to go to college. I think you should lead the charge with some fellow, and it's not even conservative. We'll call it free thinkers, because somebody even said in the comments, like, left, right, it's just wings of the same crappy bird, which I do agree with on a lot of levels. I would love to hear you, and I want to make sure that as you do this, you let me know it's happening, and we'll be the first ones to show it. Lead the charge of people saying, because there is no science behind masks anymore. There is not a single thing between the little sleeves that were put on, and it's not an N95. It is a completely failed scientific experiment that does nothing to actually help. So I say you lead the charge to stand up. And if they want to send home 220 something students, let them do it and make sure the local news covers it, as hard as that will be for. If they don't cover it, we have a few different outlets that we will spread the story to. And maybe that will inspire the rest of the country, because ultimately this is what I wanted to get at with the vaccine and with COVID-19 in your age group. Fun fact, 0 to the age of 28 years old, there is around 3,000 COVID deaths, which we don't know how many of these are, other illnesses induced. But let's say 3,000 is about 2,800 out of the 600,000. That means the 0 to 28-year-old age group makes up 0.04% of all the fatalities. So this is COVID worse than the flu? Yes. Is it worse than the flu in your age group? No, not at all. Why is this such a big deal? And now they're saying, well, it could be brought back to other parts of the family. I don't give a shit. I care much more about 18, 17, 20-year-olds than I care about. If the masks work and if the vaccine works, they should be fine. So whatever. I say stand up. Let's see. Oh, man. This vaccine stuff is I think this vaccine stuff is the biggest diversion we're having in our news right now, because something else, the election stuff is going on and they're making sure that COVID is the top news story. What do you think of Fauci? Emma?
I really struggle with a lot of things in the news. And honestly, I will be completely honest, I have stopped watching a lot of it only because it made me so frustrated. And so I couldn't tell you anything recent. I know I need to keep up with it more, but I tried to take a break these past few weeks because it's so frustrating to me.
Mental health break is not a bad thing. But if you're going to get back into it, watch the Rand Paul Fauci feud this evening from earlier today. It was great. Addison, what's your overall opinion on the fact that we have Dr. Fauci as kind of the head of our medical response? It's more of a Hollywood doctor than a real doctor. And I say that knowing that he does have a medical degree. But Addison, what's your opinion on Fauci?
Well, I personally don't think of him as a credible or trustworthy person, considering that he's gone from like the point of like, we don't need masks or we do need masks. He just goes back and forth, and it's just not. It doesn't look good to. I don't know. You can't trust someone if they don't even know what they're saying, kind of. And I don't know. He's just kind of a lunatic, so I don't really.
He went ham tonight. That's another, you girls are going to enjoy that. Go and watch the Fauci. There were some fireworks. And he's lying. He can't admit it because he knows it goes down a spiral where they have to let him go when he talks about go ahead, Casey.
He didn't lie though.
Why not?
He just tried to twist the truth. He did not actually lie. If you pay attention to what he's saying, he never admitted to anything of fault of what Rand Paul was trying to accuse him of. he just twists the words and tries to put it back on Rand Paul.
Valid.
And so that's politics. That's what they do.
Which he's better at than being a doctor, which is 100% true.
100%.
All right. Let's see. Final couple questions. I know that you guys don't watch a ton of news anymore. I can understand why. I'm, at the point of losing my mind, and it's hard to actually find good information. Where, as a young conservative, where do you get your news when you are paying attention?
So I don't watch news on TV or anything like that. It's more like if I kind of listen to podcasts and or I'll check people's recent. Well, I have this app Telegram. I don't know if you guys know the app Telegram. And so it sends me all.
Apparently she thinks we're too old for Telegram, Casey. All the cool kids are doing Telegram. Do you know what that is? You TikTok anonymous over there. All right, go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
And so anyways, I get all the tweets from these people that I follow, and so Candace Owens and all them, and so or Donald Trump Jr. even, and so I get all their tweets, and I'm like, what, this happened? And so then I'll go and search it on Google or whatever, and I'll look at whatever article it is, CNN or whatever. I don't care, and then I'm not gonna let it influence me. I'll just see what's going on. And then after I know what's going on, because they're the most, I feel they're the quickest too to get news out too, or the more liberal news things. And so, anyways, I'll see what's going on, and then I'm like, what? And so, anyways, that's how I get my news.
That's my gauge. Is whenever there's a headline that tugs at my emotional strings, I know that there is something bull behind it, which causes me to therefore try to do a little back research. And Snopes and the fact checkers are phenomenal to look at. Not their decisions. The articles, they do a lot of great investigative journalism in the actual article, but they know nobody reads anything except for true or false or maybe. But you can get really good information in those. They talked when people were trying to figure out where money for where Black Lives Matter was going, the whole Act Blue thing. They essentially proved the case that it was going to Act Blue in the article while saying it was false. And they gave great examples. I was like, oh, so I always say go to the fact checks and read the actual article instead of just the fact-finding decision. Emma, how about you? When you're not taking time off, a little sabbatical.
I still keep up with it. I just try not to pay too close attention. I agree. I tend to look at, because CNN, it does come out with news really quickly. And I tend to look at the headline, and then, like Addison, I then go research it myself. Also, I have the Apple News set up on my phone, and so I get the notifications. Kind of the same thing. I see the headline, and then I go look it up. And then I follow several conservative people on social media, and I try to kind of keep up with what they're talking about. My dad, he watches Hannity and Fox News, and so I kind of hear it in the background a lot. And then if I hear something that sparks my interest, then I'll go kind of try and look stuff up for myself.
There's a good app I like. I don't know, Casey. I don't know if you've downloaded this. It's called Newsbreak. And it's constantly getting, you constantly get stuff, and it's all over the map, left, right. And it does, you see the headline, and you're like, is this worth looking up? And it's good. So Newsbreak always has a lot of good stuff coming in. Like today, the big distraction was, Bezos flew over whatever. Nobody cares. But anyways, okay. So that's where you guys, again, I think the key is it's amazing that young people do this. And we have older people, including leftists that come on the show. It's very simple. You can't look at one thing. You can't look at Fox News. You can't look at CNN. You're going to look at a headline because that's what we do. It's 2021. You look at a headline, and if it's something you don't believe anything from the headline, but if it's something you want to know more about, you do extra research. And there's been BetheChange is a great source too. There was a suggestion of using DuckDuckGo instead of Google. I use DuckDuckGo now. It is helpful. There is less filtering. What some of you guys don't know is Tulsi Gabbard. Do you ladies know who Tulsi Gabbard is? She was running for president on the left. And fun fact of the power of Google, She was running for president on the Democratic side, and nobody knew who she was really. And in the first debate, she's pretty and she killed everybody. She just destroyed every single person on that panel. So if you know how elections work, in order to get in the next debate, you have to raise a certain amount of money, not total, but unique donors, and you need a certain percentage of the polls. So the most important thing is when you're hot, you got to stay hot. So Google accidentally, right when everybody, she was the most Googled person from the first Democratic debate. And what did Google do? They accidentally shut down her web traffic for 4 hours. This is when she would have gotten all of her donors. People would have learned about her. And she actually, I don't know what happened with the lawsuit, but she had to sue Google. But it shows the power Google has over the people. As somebody that isn't fully conservative, I love Tulsi Gabbard's belief, a lot of her belief system. She's not perfect, Casey. Nobody is, but she actually has some conservative views. And it would have been really interesting because they didn't want a very moderate Democrat to be in, and she got hammered just like that. And Obama came from nowhere. Obama started out where Tulsi was, and they made sure that didn't happen with the power of Google. And it just shows how difficult our system is to deal with. Let's see. So final question before I do the one video that I want you guys to give your opinion on, and then we'll be out of here. What do you believe the current state of the country is, and what do you believe for the future? We'll start with eeny, meeny, miny, Addison.
Well, our current state, I mean, everyone's kind of scared right now, I feel like. And that's not really doesn't really look good on America, to be honest, to be a scared country. And so, wait, what was the second half of your question? What did you say?
What do you think about the future? What potentials, how can we right this ship?
I'm not really sure, to be honest. I mean,
we feel the same way. We don't really know. We're doing the best we can.
Yeah, I mean, I guess getting more young people to get interested in politics, because we need that, and because they're all kind of lost right now. So that could be a step, I guess, to securing our future. So
this will be the final question when we're heading out, when we do how we end the show. Emma, what do you think about the current state of the country right now?
I think it's scary. I think that we were making steps in the right direction. And then when COVID hit, I really think that our government was able to use COVID as an excuse for a lot of things, and for a lot of regression in the progress that we had made. And I think that with this new virus, this new strain, I think it's almost like people were starting to take notice of what was happening in the country, and now all of a sudden we're shutting everything back down. And so it's just kind of interesting to me how things were starting to kind of come to light, and things were being questioned, and the president had gotten into office, and things were kind of starting to settle in, and then oops, all of a sudden we have another shutdown. So it's just interesting.
The Delta variant, now that I'm hearing you say it, the Delta variant was supposedly came from India, and probably also had some ties to China at the same time. If Joey Basements wanted to really, step up and lead a charge, shouldn't he have blocked travel? Something that Trump did. I haven't even thought of that till right now. But if this Delta variant was really that big of a deal, which I look at viruses, and viruses, even if they get more contagious, they tend not to be as dangerous. But regardless, if he really wanted to do something to keep the country, even keeled and not be, he risked being labeled a xenophobe, whatever, he probably could have shut down travel from India and from China, and I don't know. Just a thought process. All right, so let's go. I want to have you guys react to this video. So, both of you, as I said before the show, if you don't know this, you're white. I'm letting you know now. This is a news flash to all of us. A lot of us are being blamed as a conservative and white person that we are part of a white supremacist nation. And if we don't speak out against it, that makes us one of them. I don't agree with it. You guys can feel differently. I'm assuming you don't. But when I see things like this is very reminiscent to the 1950s and 60s, the other way around. And I don't think people see what they're doing. So I'm going to play this video and I want you guys to give your opinion on it. Bum, bum, bum. Language warning.
Hey, get off the block. Go. He want to know what he looks like. He looks like you. It ain't him. Let's go. Get your white face out of here. Your kind just suck this shit up. That's me. Let him get in his car. They not letting him. Do not stand right here. Don't stand right here. You don't. Get your white face out of here. You gonna do something tonight? Get your ass out of here. You gonna do something tonight? You gonna knock you the fuck out? Get the fuck out of here. See, Smith? Get back, bro. Yo, don't come, bro. Just shut this shit up. Get the fuck out of here, man. That shit make him happy. Leave him alone. Roll the window, ass nigga, bro. It ain't safe for no white people.
It's not safe for no white people.
Go get you some donuts and get the fuck out of here. Get the fuck out of here. Hey, who drove this car?
This woman's a hero. All right, you obviously probably should have done a language warning on that one, but you get the point. So ultimately, I had to watch it a couple times to hear all the different things that they were saying, which was essentially ridiculing him, not because he was a cop, but because he was a white cop, where the other black cops there had to actually be the ones to take care of a situation, which was a crime that had just happened. And he was trying to do his job, and they force-fed him back into his car, essentially making him leave, again, not because he was the police, but because they didn't want a white cop there. And there was a lot of white profanities thrown at him. In a world that you've probably seen people having to be an apologist for being white, what do you think of videos that are starting to consistently pop up that look like this? And do you think we live in a white supremacist country? Who wants to go first? Emma, going with you.
I think it's difficult. And the thing I have with the police situation, with the defunding the police, and things like that, I think that they want to be so against these people until they need them. And you see, even if in this video they needed them, but they didn't want them when a white police officer showed up. And so I just, it's frustrating to me that they group them all together, and they label all white police officers as bad. I think that's so frustrating because these people, they do not have to do that job. I mean, they are showing up to help you, and I think honestly in that moment you should just be grateful that they are showing up to do their job, especially when so many people don't want them in their workplace. And so I think it's just hard to see stuff like that because, like I said, they don't have to do that job. They choose to do that job. And so when you ridicule them for showing up to help you, that's really frustrating to me.
Yeah, I agree. And it's it's there again. We're not grouping anybody in with black people, white people, cops, etc. But when you see something like that, when there is somebody that is a person of color yelling into a window at a police officer without any retribution from the police officer, I've got news for you. We do not live in a white supremacist country. Period. That's something that can't happen if white supremacy was a thing. Addison, I'll let you take it if you have a quick response on this one, and then we'll wrap up.
Yeah, I agree completely with what Emma said. No one should have been treated like that, and I mean that was racist for them to not want a white cop to be there, because I mean law enforcement is, like Emma said, they're very valuable right now, and that's, I mean, it's just very negative to always be like hounding them all the time. I mean, like, give them credit for something at least. I feel like it's always such a negative view on law enforcement. So,
yeah, and what they don't realize is the more we push the police officers, is we don't know what their next call is going to be. Their next call might be something where they are in hand-to-hand combat with a person of a different color, and they're just coming from a bunch of people yelling at them, and they are human beings that are going to carry their last 2 hours with them, and that could cause them to make a bad decision. So stuff like that ends up causing the stuff that we see on the news that's even worse. And people don't realize that they're not robots, they're human beings. And the fact that now we're not only getting upset at police, but we're literally separating them by color is such a regression in this country. And it's completely ignored by mainstream media. All right, final thing, ladies, this is how we're going to wrap up. What's your hopes? What's your dreams? And do any of you ladies plan on running for politics as you start to get a little bit older? Addison, go ahead and go.
Actually, I have always, or not always, I guess more recently, past couple of years, been interested in running for a position in politics in my state. And so there's a program, Team Pact in our state that I really wanted to do, because you kind of get to like reenact that, what goes on in the Capitol or state Capitol. And so I don't know. I have an uncle that's a state representative too, and so I've been exposed to a lot of that, and to a lot of what goes on there. And so I'd like to go into that someday, or if not, at least be a campaign manager or something like that. I think that'd be interesting. So yeah.
I dig it. And what people don't even know is it's not hard to sometimes slip in. I was just talking to somebody that literally was like, at the Donald Trump Jr. thing, she ran kind of on a whim and ended up losing by like 21 votes or 71 votes in a community. Or no, it was like, it was like 20 votes in a 20,000 person thing. And you can slip in there and actually create real political change on a local level, which I used to be a little bit more afraid of, but I think it's important. So anything else, Addison, like if you think of like any other dreams besides politics, like what do you want to do as you get older? Is there a business profession that you're looking to get into?
I mean, nothing specific besides, I don't know, some sort of administration of something. I'm not sure.
Got it. I feel like conservative youth at this age, it's their future is survival at this point. So, Emma, what do you think? What's your hopes, dreams, future thoughts, and will you get into politics?
I would like to get into politics. If not run for an office, at least stay active in my community. Because like I think it's so important that people are making change in their communities and being a part of the decisions that impact their daily lives. And I mean, seeing my dad go into office so late in life, I'm like, well, if not at first, because I want to go to college, I want to pursue more education. If not then, maybe later. And yeah, I just think it's so important. I'd like to go into politics, business, anything like that.
Are you both planning on going to college?
I'd like to.
Do you have any thought? Are you, Emma, you're going to be a senior next year or going to be a junior?
Going to be a junior.
Going to be a junior. Addison, you're going to be a senior, right?
I'm going to be a junior as well.
Oh, nice. Okay, so same age. Same grade level. So have you guys started looking at colleges yet?
Not really.
Just starting, Emma, and then Addison, not quite yet. All right. Well, we're going to continue this. I want to continue the young group having these continuous conversations. If there's a time you guys want to come back on, especially as you start getting, looking into colleges and, into the future, hopefully you'll be still doing these shows. I talked a lot with Julie and we'll have her on the next time we do a Youth and Revolt 2. Just kind of what goes on at a college level is very different than high school. And this was an interesting perspective because we had homeschool on, as well as rural. So we probably didn't get the aggressiveness. I want to find also a conservative that's in the middle of a ultra left school district. That will be an absolute blast. Anyways, yeah. So if that's the final words, if there's anything else you guys want to say, just kind of throw a hand up. Otherwise, Casey, go ahead and give your final words.
Yeah, I can jump in. So my final words to you two, thank you for coming. It was a great conversation, and I loved your insight. I learned a lot from what you guys are going through and what you guys are seeing and experiencing. I'm getting a little bit of that taste now, having my nephew at my house. He's 12, so I'm seeing some of the stuff he's getting taught, and then that's what spurred some of my questions for you guys today. But thank you. One of the things that I would just want to end with is don't stop. You guys have a lot of very good knowledge and building, and your foundation is built. Keep going. Just keep going with what you guys want to do. You're doing great, and I love your knowledge. So I appreciate you guys being here and being so open and sharing your insight and what you're going through.
Yes, you are the children. Teach them well and let them lead the way. You are our future. It's a song probably well before you know what it is. Anyways, moving on. So thank you guys for being on. There's a lot of great comments. Eric's was perfect. You both have parents who are literally being the change. Hopefully you continue on to be the change as well. And I think that's great. And I think it does start with parenting on top of a little bit of luck and a little bit of help from God this day and age, to be honest, to keep people level-headed. And that's not just to make them conservative, it's to make them think with common sense and to actually educate themselves on the programs. If you guys want to listen to this later, obviously it's always going to be up on YouTube as well as Facebook, unless because these two girls said vaccine and fraud, it's going to be their fault if it gets taken down, which probably won't. Or you could always watch it on our podcast or listen to it on Podcast Network, #BetheChange.com/podcast. Make sure you follow that. Go ahead and pick the one you like. We've got Apple, we've got Spotify, and the Google one, whatever it is. So just make sure you follow it. It helps us. If you cannot be a part of our Patreon or help us out financially with what we do, patreon.com/BetheChangeUSA. As long as you're subscribing to our podcast and we are growing that and sharing that, that is a huge deal for us. Ladies, I will thank you backstage. So when I end the show, just wait for me for like 30 seconds and we'll be back there. Thank you guys. See you guys tomorrow night. We've got great shows coming up. Concert Vengers, episode 21, and Changemakers will be at 7 p.m. Eastern time with Jennifer and Mallory from Love Jessica Incorporated. And again, that is a charity that helps parents that have lost a child to get through the financial expenses and at least take that burden of stress off of them. We look forward to seeing you guys again on another episode. Jessica, thanks for sending the daughter on here. Addison and Emma, phenomenal job. Thank you to our guests. Thank you for Casey. He's not the best color man in the business for nothing. And to our audience, it's a major league line. These girls have no idea what I'm talking about either. Most of the crowd doesn't either. All right. Thank you guys for watching. Be the change you wish to see in the world. Take action over awareness and be awake, not woke.